Hello and welcome. This video tutorial will be on configuring the firewall for Linux Mint 13. The firewall for Linux Mint 13 by default is going to be known as UFW. UFW, that's Uniform Frank Whiskey. UFW is a firewall that comes default on most Ubuntu type operating systems, or the offshoot of Ubuntu operating systems, such as Mint, let's see, another one, Crunchbang, and other type of Ubuntu operating systems. So let's go ahead and get started. There are two ways of configuring the firewall for UFW. You can either configure it from the terminal or the command line interface, or you can configure it from the GUI. Today we will be configuring it from the terminal, and there are several ways you can access your terminal. So let me go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. So, alright, so there are two ways you can get to your terminal off of Linux Mint 13. One way you can do it is on the empty space on your desktop. If you just right click and choose Open in Terminal, that will open up your terminal or command line interface. Another way is if you go down to the menu button, left click on the menu and go to Terminal. You can open up the terminal that way as well. So let's go ahead and get started with configuring your firewall. And again, the firewall that we're using is the one that comes default with most Ubuntu or Ubuntu-like Linux operating systems. That includes Mint. So the firewall that we're going to be configuring today is known as UFW. So the first thing I think we should start is in order to configure most firewalls, you're going to need to have what is known as root access or administrative access. If you're talking Windows, it's administrative access. If you're talking Linux, it's usually referred to as root access. It's the same thing either way. It means overall access of the computer. So when you do your commands, if you're not going to log in as root, then you can do a sudo and then the command. Okay, if you would prefer to log in as root and then run the commands, you would run the command sudo space su and then you put in a hyphen, and that will give you special root commands, and then you press enter and then you put in your password. Then that logs you in as root. Now, to show you the difference between a regular user and a user with root access or the root account, when you see the pound sign, that means that you're logged in as root. When you see the other sign, which for the one above is the question mark, that's when you're logged in as a regular user. And to prove the point, if you just type in who am I and press enter, shows that you're root. If you exit and then you type in who am I, it will show you the current user that you're logged in under, which is MXWIL. So let's go ahead and begin. We'll go ahead and do this from regular user. And once again, you're going to need to use root rights. So you can, if you want to use root rights and you don't have root access, or you don't want root access directly, just use the sudo command, and then we're going to check on the firewall. So that's going to be with the command UFW space status, and then press enter. Okay, it's going to ask for the password. Put in the password, and there it shows the firewall is inactive. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and activate the firewall, and that's with the command sudo ufw space enable. Press enter. Alright, so now your firewall has been activated. Okay, and one of the first things you want to do when you've activated your firewall is you want to set it up so that you can deny all inbound data or all inbound access, and that blocks anybody who's trying to come in from the internet or anywhere else into your computer. That blocks them through this command, and that command is just going to be sudo ufw default deny, and then you press enter. Alright, and as you can see, default incoming policy changed to deny. Okay, and then to make sure that those rules stick, you can just do a reload. That's with sudo ufw reload. Okay, and now let's check on the status of your firewall, and that's going to be with the command sudo ufw status, and it says status is active. Alright, so good. Now let's go over a scenario real quick, and this scenario is going to help you if you want to create a policy for your firewall. And just in case I didn't mention it, a very simple definition of what a firewall is that it's just basically a program that that guards your computer from hackers who are trying to access your computer and get on and get information that they should not have access to. So a firewall blocks that from happening. Okay, so what you want to do is, let's say you built a web server and you want to open up one port, because that's what a firewall does. It blocks the ports, or it protects the ports from intruders. But if you need to open up a port for a service to get out, which would be, let's say, a web server, then the port that you would want to open, just so that people can come in through the web server, would be port 80. So in order to open up port 80 just on the TCP protocol, you would run this command. That would be sudo ufw allow 80/TCP, and then press enter. Alright, so the rule has been added both for Internet version 4 and version 3. Alright, so, and then to look at that, to look at the policy that we just created, you would do a sudo space ufw status, enter, and there you go, you have the rule created there. Alright, now if you wanted to do it for the protocol UDP, that's Uniform Delta Papa, you would run a similar command. It would just be sudo ufw allow 80/UDP. Rule has been added, so then you'll do a sudo ufw status, enter, and as you can see, you have both of them. If you want to do a shortcut and you know that you want port 80 open for both TCP and UDP, you just can type in this command, sudo ufw allow port 80, enter. Then to check it, you do a sudo ufw status. Alright, so you see you got it open for port 80 and port 80 TCP and UDP for both Internet version 4 and Internet version 6. Now, let's say you want to deny a port. Okay, so to deny a port, let's say you want to deny port 80 off of UDP, then you would run the command sudo ufw, deny 80 UDP. Enter. Alright, and then to check to make sure the policy went through, you do a sudo ufw status. And as you can see, it has been deleted. And basically you can do this for any port, any excuse me, you can do this for any port or any protocol, whether it's TCP, UDP, for the services FTP or Telnet or any of the other known 1024 known ports. But in either case, this is a good way of configuring your firewall. As I said, you can also configure it through a GUI. I always find it better to configure it this way through the command line, because it's just as easy to type them in. But in either case, you can go ahead and use the GUI at your convenience. Now, we've talked about how to configure the ports to allow incoming traffic, and we've talked about how to configure the ports, how to deny incoming traffic. Now, the other thing that we need to do is we need to go over how to delete the rules or the policies. And now, I did a video on this earlier on another Ubuntu distribution, and this was on Ubuntu 10.04. And someone told me in that video that the way I want to delete it is you don't have to use it, but according to the website for UFW, whenever you want to delete something, you have to put in the deny and then the policy. Let me explain what I mean. So let's say we want to delete the policy for port 80 UDP. Okay, so you want to do this command. You do a sudo ufw deny, and then let's see, delete 80 UDP. Press enter. Oh, okay. Let's see. I think I typed it in wrong. Sudo. Let's see. UDP. Let's see here. Okay. Well, let's try this. Sudo ufw. Oh, I put it in wrong. I put it in backwards. Hold on. Delete. Deny 80 UDP. Enter. Okay, the rule has been deleted. So let's do a sudo status. Oh, sudo ufw status. All right, and it has been denied. Now, let's try a little experiment. Let's try it without the policy, and let's just try and delete it. Let's see, let's try and delete port 80. So let's do a sudo ufw delete 80 TCP. Okay, it didn't like that. Let's do a sudo status. Oh, wait a minute. UFW status. Okay, it's still in there. So then what we'll need to do is do a sudo UFW delete let's see, what did we do the first time? We did delete, and then we're going to do allow 80 TCP. Enter. Okay, rule has been deleted. Let's go ahead and do a sudo UFW status. Okay, so you do need to put in the delete before the rule and the policy. So that's how you go ahead and you get rid of or you delete a policy, and thereby closing that port that you had previously opened. So let's go ahead and get rid of this last one for port 80 itself. You just do a sudo UFW delete allow 80. Alright, and to check to make sure that that did come across, just do a sudo UFW status. Firewall is active. Now, and then, like I said, to accept the changes that you've made, you just do a reload, which is sudo UFW reload. Firewall has been reloaded. Now, if you choose that you want to turn off the firewall, you can do a sudo UFW disable. Enter, and the firewall has been stopped and disabled. To check to make sure, you can do a sudo UFW status, and the firewall has been disabled and it's inactive. So that's how you can go ahead and configure your UFW firewall off of your Linux Mint 13. As I said, UFW also comes by default on a lot of Ubuntu type operating systems and distributions. That can include, like I said, Mint, possibly even Crunchbang, and other Linux Mint derivatives or distributions. I like using UFW as a firewall because to me it's quick, it's simple, and it's easy to use. So hopefully you have found some information that you can use for this from this video. I hope it has helped you out a lot. Thank you very much, and you have a good day.